From Governor's Comedy Club in Levittown, this is Sports Bash, presented by TicketBash.com. TicketBash.com, where memories are made affordable and where you'll never pay a service fee. Sports Bash is also presented by the Ryan Anthony Head Start Fund, a group of like-minded individuals trying to raise awareness to our future generations of all possibilities of success other than just college. For more information, visit www.lookwhomadeit.org. Sports Bash is brought to you by the Embassy Diner, located at 4280 Hempstead Turnpike in Bethpage. Every customer is considered family at the Embassy Diner. Mention Sports Bash, get a free dessert with your meal. And by the Marty Lyons Foundation, the official charity of Sports Bash Media. For more information, go to martylyonsfoundation.org. Well, hi again, everybody. Happy Thursday to all of you bashers, as Hershey from Hershey and the King wanted to call my listeners and viewers. Let's just call them bashers. So good afternoon to all the bashers who are tuned in here on Sports Bash. I'm Peter Schwartz, 516-465-3990. That's the number to call to join the program. Make sure you're subscribing to Govs Comedy Club podcast and Sports Bash Media on YouTube and following on Facebook and Instagram. Also follow Sports Bash Media on X, Instagram, and Facebook. Big show for you guys today and gals. Coming up on the show, I'll be joined by David Lennon from Newsday. We'll talk, there's a lot to talk with him about. Obviously, also the news from the Baseball Hall of Fame. Earlier this week, Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred announcing this new rule regarding the likes of Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe Jackson that removed them from the permanently banned list because they are now deceased, and we'll talk about that with David. We'll get his opinion. I'll share mine, and I know later in the show Wiz wants to share his because he's chomping at the bit here to get going, and he was already chewing my ear off before the show about the whole Hall of Fame. He walked in here with a glow in his face and a little extra pep in his step, but I told him to shut up until later in the show. I told him I would give him his 5 minutes later in the program to talk about the Hall of Fame, and I am a man of my word. We will get to you, I promise. Stay there, calm down, relax, get the smile off your face, okay? Just relax. I promise you 5 strong minutes later on in the show before Stump the Wiz. You will get your chance later in the show to talk about your feelings about the Hall of Fame. We'll talk about that. Obviously, we'll talk about the Yankees and the Mets with David Lennon as well. Coming here, leaving my house, of course, you plan a sports talk show. What's the lead? And the lead here for us, even though we'll be talking baseball and the Hall of Fame in a little bit, obviously the lead is the Knicks and Celtics and Game 5 last night. But, you know me, I'm a happy-go-lucky kind of guy for the most part. I don't like to talk about too many negative things if I can avoid it. And believe me, sometimes you can't avoid it. You have to talk about negative things. And we'll get to the Knicks in just a couple of minutes. But I did want to start the show on a very happy and positive note. We have been very blessed here on the show, both here at Governors and on the old version of the show on LI News Radio, that one of our premier sponsors, and obviously the show is presenting sponsors, Ryan Anthony Head Start Fund and Heating and Air Conditioning Company, and also TicketBash.com. But one of the first other companies besides those two that jumped on board to support our show is the Embassy Diner in Bethpage. The Embassy Diner, and I'll repeat, I just said it on the open, 4280 Hempstead Turnpike in Bethpage. And don't forget, if you mention Sports Bash, you get that free delicious dessert with your meal. But big week for Embassy Diner. They are celebrating their 3rd anniversary. And if you're saying, well, Peter, I live on Long Island. Embassy Diner's been there for years, but it's 3 years under the ownership group led by our dear friend Gus and all the great people over there, Pete and everybody at Embassy Diner celebrating their 3rd anniversary. They're giving out T-shirts this week to celebrate that anniversary. But as an even bigger thank you and congratulations, I do want to welcome Embassy Diner back for another year of sponsoring Sports Bash. That became official today. So we welcome back Gus and everybody over there at Embassy Diner. Listen, if you've never been there, trust me. And again, just look at me. I think I know a thing or two about food. Sometimes not so good, but The food is absolutely phenomenal at the Embassy Diner. They've been so nice to bring stuff over here for us during the show. We're still, I was just over there before I came to do the show, and they are packed. It was about 12 o'clock, and you couldn't get a parking spot. I had to park across the street, and people are lined up in there. They're getting great meals and the great desserts. Don't forget, mention Sports Bash, get that free dessert. And they're handing out T-shirts this week to celebrate their 3rd anniversary. So congratulations to them, and we could not be happier and thankful to have them back as another sponsor for another year. And I think from our perspective here at Sports Bash and Sports Bash Media, the fact that they have decided to come back with us for another year, we're going to try and do some other things with them. Again, we want Gus to come in studio at some point to talk about the Embassy, and he's a big sports fan too. So if you went to the restaurant, you would see very supportive of the police officers and the firefighters, but also Gus is a very big sports fan, and you'll see he's got local high school jerseys hanging up in the restaurant. He's just so supportive to the community. There's not a charity that's local or a business that needs assistance or needs sponsorship that he ever says no to. He is, as we like to say in the Jewish religion, he is a mensch by every stretch of the imagination. So we thank him so much for being back with us for another year. And again, congratulations to them on their 3rd anniversary. Make sure you go stop by. I think I've talked about this before, and I know Tony Walker, my producer and the host of the Knock 'em Dead comedy show here on Governor's Comedy Club podcast from 11 to 12:30 every day. A couple of times Gus has brought the food over. I love their paninis there, and I think you went home with a panini on one of the visits. If I gave you 10 seconds to describe that panini, how would you describe it?
Yum.
I was thinking a little bit more descriptive than yum.
Doesn't get any more descriptive than that.
Yum. But everything there is just so good and fresh, and I could probably talk for the whole hour about the Embassy Diner, but we have other business to take care of. But again, mazel tov to Gus and everybody at Embassy Diner on 3 years, and I'm looking forward to getting in there and taking care of some business maybe later. I don't know. I stopped off there for personal business just now, but we might get to take care of some eating business there later tonight. We'll see what happens, but in any event, thank you to the Embassy Diner for being back with us for another year. Again, we'll talk baseball with David Lennon in a little bit, but we want to hear from you, 516-465-3990. You could weigh in on the Hall of Fame decision earlier this week. Do you agree with Rob Manfred reinstating Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe Jackson and others who might be affected by that? But those are obviously the two big names. But from a sports perspective, after we got rid of all that other business, we have to talk about the Knicks and Game 5 last night against the Celtics. And just like the Pistons series, I mean, this series is a war. And the Knicks are in the same position against the Celtics that they were in against the Pistons in the first round. They were up 3-1 with a chance to close it out, although last round they had a chance to close it out against the Pistons at home, but lost and then finished it off in Detroit in Game 6. In this case, the Knicks, after splitting the 2 games at home, after winning the first 2 games in Boston, last night get blown out by the Celtics in Game 5 in Boston. And now we'll come back for Game 6 tomorrow night, and I'm sure Madison Square Garden is going to be a loony bin tomorrow night. I usually check these things before I leave the house, and maybe slowly. Well, I think I checked it early this morning or last night. I think it's upwards of $870 something on Ticketbash.com to get into the building. We can double check on that. Maybe get an update later in the show, but it will cost you basically upwards of $800 to get in the building tomorrow night for Game 6, and I'm sure it's going to be an insane asylum there tomorrow night. But the Knicks have to play better. I mean, if you look at the 6 games against the Pistons and the 5 games so far against the Celtics, maybe game 1 against the Pistons, did the Knicks play an A game? I mean, in every other game, they either lost or fell behind. Obviously here in the Celtics series, falling behind by 20 in the first 2 games and coming back to win, and they were down 14 in game 4 and came back to win. But the Knicks have to play better. And even the Celtics without Jason Tatum with the ruptured Achilles tendon, this is still a championship Celtics team. And last night, it looked good early. The Knicks had that 9-point lead, and then they just fell apart. Sloppy turnovers, missed open shots, and Jalen Brunson fouls out in the fourth quarter. I mean, when do you see that happen? And Karl Anthony Towns, I mean, he's only had a few really good moments in this series and even in the entire playoffs so far. They just have to play better. And to me right now, as Wiz blows his nose to the left of me, it's okay. People make fun of me when I blow my nose really loud. If you haven't heard that, I mean, maybe I should do it one day. Because I can play the trumpet on my nose when I blow my nose. It's okay. They have to come forth with a better effort, and they need it from start to finish. I mean, if you thought this series was over at 3-1, I mean, I'm sorry, the Knicks haven't shown you enough consistency in the playoffs so far that would let you believe, they've got the killer instinct to knock this team out. That's where I think this team is a little different than they were last year, when you had a little different look, and you had now Randall was hurt obviously in the playoffs last year, but Hartenstein and DiVincenzo, and there was just a little bit more. I think there was a little bit more killer instinct than last year's Knicks team, and the only reason they lost to the Pacers in the second round last year was because they had injury after injury after injury, and that's why they lost to the Pacers. And I'm sure right now the Knicks are chomping at the bit to get another crack at them in the Eastern Conference Final, but they still have to win one more game against the Celtics. And stating the obvious here, the Knicks are up 9 last night, couldn't hold it, wind up getting blown out, and looked horrible in the second half. If the Knicks don't win tomorrow night in Game 6, I just don't see how they could win a Game 7 in Boston. Even without Jason Tatum. The Celtics probably man to man, without Tatum, have a better roster than the Knicks do. Although the momentum after going up 3-1 is with the Knicks, especially after the message they sent coming back in all 3 of those wins. But they need to take care of business tomorrow night. Get it going early on. And for Christ's sake, defend the 3-pointer. Are you just going to let the Celtics just hit wide open threes? Can you get a hand up in somebody's face? And how many times were you going to let the Celtics block shots last night too? That's supposed to be a sign of the Knicks' tenacity, playing good defense. Where was that last night? Are you letting these guys fire up threes from all over the place? And then there were some cases also where they left guys wide open in the paint. That was a very frustrating game to watch last night. I'm sitting there watching with my son, and we just kept looking at each other like where was the defense there? Like how did that guy miss a shot from 10 feet out? And listen, it's hard. In the NBA, you look historically, and I don't know exactly what the numbers were. They said it last night on the broadcast, and I forgot what it was. But there's only been, down 3-1. The odds in the NBA historically of coming back 3-1, I think there's only been one team that was down 3-0 and came back and won. I think there's only one in the NBA. There's a few in the NHL. Wiz, you're shaking your head.
There's no one that's come back 3-0 and won.
I think there was a team that came down 3-0 and they tied it, and then they lost.
There's a few instances of that. There's the 1950 There's like the 1954 finals between the Knicks and the Rochester Royals, who had Max Kozlowski, by the way. No, the Knicks did. I gotta say that. There was the Mavericks and the Blazers in 2003, where it was tied, and then I think the Mavericks 7, and then the Heat and the Celtics.
But it's happened in the NHL, and obviously in baseball, the Yankees were up 3-0 and lost to the Red Sox in the ALCS in 2004. But in this case, listen, even with the Knicks up 3-1, coming off the win at the Garden in Game 4. You can't deny the Celtics. They're the defending world champions, and they are loaded up and down the lineup. But all the pressure in the world is on the Knicks now. All the pressure in the world, because they know if they don't win Game 6 at home, I mean they will have their hands full against the Celtics in the Game 7. So. If I was Tom Thibodeau, the head coach, I would make sure that team was ready to go tomorrow night. And that's a later start now tomorrow. That's an 8 o'clock start at the Garden. So, and we're going to get to this on the Sports Bash Media poll question of the day, because there is now a dilemma. If you are a Knicks fan and you are either a Yankees or a Mets fan, I teased the question on Tuesday's show. Tony already gave his 2 cents on it on Tuesday. And we'll get to, I don't want to tease the question too much more because we'll have it later, but there is a dilemma if you're a New York sports fan and you're a Knicks fan, and obviously if you're a Yankees or a Mets fan, there's a dilemma tomorrow night. We'll talk about it a little bit later on. But when we come back here on the show, we're going to talk about the Hall of Fame with Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe Jackson, the decision made by Rob Manfred earlier this week to reinstate those players who were on the ineligible list but have passed away. We'll talk some Yankees and Mets with him as well. And then later in the show, our favorite segment of the week. It's This Week in Sport. No, I'm just kidding. It's Stump the Wiz. Stump the Wiz and This Week in Sports History later on in the show. And we're going to give Wiz his 5 minutes of glory talking about the Hall of Fame. But he'll keep his mouth closed in the next segment when I talk to David Lennon. As Tony smiles and chuckles, we'll be back with David Lennon from Newsday right after this. Hi, I'm Peter Schwartz.
And I'm Vinny Tickets.
We want to take a moment to talk about our fantastic sponsor, the Embassy Diner.
Embassy Diner has been a beloved staple in the restaurant industry for over 50 years. And the great thing about it is when you walk through the door, you're not a customer, you are family. Every visit promises to be filled with warmth, love, and respect.
And here's an extra treat. If you mention Sports Bash during your visit, you enjoy a free dessert on the Embassy Diner.
Come on down to the Embassy Diner, where great food and great company are always on the menu.
Visit the Embassy Diner, located at 4280 Hempstead Turnpike in Bethpage.
In 1982, the Marty Lyons Foundation began with a single heartfelt mission: to bring moments of joy and hope to critically ill children by granting wishes that make their dreams come true. Since that day, we have touched the lives of over 8,500 families, raising over $43 million to grant wishes that offer a beacon of light in their darkest times. These precious wishes cost an average of $6,700 each, and your support is crucial to our mission. Every donation, big or small, makes a difference. And with 76 cents of every dollar going directly to supporting our families, you can rest assured your support truly changes lives. The Marty Lyons Foundation operates 11 chapters in 14 states now, working tirelessly to reach as many children as we can. This dedication goes hand in hand with our commitment to transparency and accountability, earning us top ratings on Charity Navigator, Great Nonprofits, and Candid, which underscores our dedication to those we serve. The Marty Lyons Foundation grants wishes to children ages 3 to 17. And what really makes this foundation so special is our willingness to grant not only a first wish, but also consider a second wish to a child who continues to battle a life-threatening illness. We stand by these children, offering them hope and strength through the power of dreams, giving our children the courage to wish for more.
What's your purpose in life? Is your purpose in life to live in the big house and drive the nice car? No. Your purpose in this life is to make it a little bit better for those that follow and realize that we live for today to see a better tomorrow.
Visit MartyWyonsFoundation.org to learn more and get involved.
Welcome back to Sports Bash, presented by TicketBash.com. This segment of Sports Bash is also presented by the Ryan Anthony Head Start Fund, a group of like-minded individuals trying to raise awareness to our future generations of all possibilities of success other than just college. For more information, visit www.lookwhomadeit.org. Welcome back to the program, everybody. I'm Peter Schwartz, 516-465-3990. The number to call. We'll get back to the phone calls later on in the program. But obviously the big story, nationally in sports, this week, other than the NBA playoffs and the Stanley Cup playoffs, but the really, really big story happened a couple of days ago when Major League Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred announced a new policy that basically removes the banishment of players like Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe Jackson from the ineligible list since they have passed away. It's a new policy that they announced the other day. So now Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe Jackson and yes, potentially others who were on the banned list and pass away would now be eligible for the Baseball Hall of Fame because they no longer are a threat to the integrity of the sport. But now that decision is in the hands of the Hall of Fame voters. And on the line with us to talk about it is someone who has a Hall of Fame vote. He's the outstanding veteran baseball writer for Newsday, David Lennon. Dave, it's Peter. How are you?
Hey, Peter. Thanks for that nice introduction there.
Well, I try to take care of my guests. You know that. You know me for a long time. I'm like, I kind of think of myself as a pretty pleasant person, especially when I was always at Met Yankee games for ESPN or FAN.
Yeah, that was outstanding is a nice word. I appreciate that very much.
No problem. When you heard the news the other day, and you've been around covering baseball for a long time, and the subject of Pete Rose and even Shoeless Joe Jackson getting reinstated at some point was always a hot topic of conversation. What were your initial thoughts when you heard the news the other day?
I wasn't surprised just because the way this seemed to be trending. I mean, it's Pete Rose has really been kind of a can that baseball has kind of kicked down the road, ruled on petitions of his in the past. They've just kind of ignored it. And this time, obviously, there's been some different circumstances here. He passed away in September, obviously. His family petitioned Manfred for reinstatement in January, I believe it was. And so now it was back on Manfred's plate again. And further complicating matters was Manfred meeting with the new president. I believe it was in early March. And President Trump had made clear on Truth Social and other media posts that he felt that Pete Rose belonged in the Hall of Fame and that baseball had screwed up and, yada, yada, yada. So when Manfred sat down with Trump at a meeting at the White House, that certainly was talked about. Manfred admitted as much, and you could sense that there was getting some momentum here, that Manfred was going to have to make a decision on this. He said he would make a ruling. He wouldn't just keep kicking this down the road, and that's what he did the other day. And this kind of, it kind of lets him play both sides of the fence here. He gets to appease the people who want Rose in the Hall of Fame and want him reinstated by saying, okay, MLB has a new policy now that once a person is deceased, they're no longer on the permanent ineligible list. So that lets them get off the hook with that. But at the same time, just making him eligible for the Hall of Fame does by no means put him in Cooperstown.
Right.
I mean, there are a couple of very big hurdles to clear for that to happen. And now Manfred can kind of sit back and say, well, I did my part. Now the rest of the bodies that have judgment on this can render their verdict on Pete.
Yeah, he's basically taken the decision off of his plate and put it into kind of, you and your peers now have the decision to make whether to put him in. It's the the Veterans Committee, I guess, is going to make that decision. So it's not you or the other beat writers and journalists that have the regular vote, but now it's going to be up to the veterans. And I'm wondering, the veterans of the game have always had this, a holy view, and I think to a certain extent, rightfully so, that listen, if you did anything wrong to stain the game, you should not be in the Hall of Fame. And we've seen this happen with baseball, and football players have talked about it as well. Now that they're eligible, I would guess, and David, you're around these guys a lot more than I am. What do you think the general feeling of living Hall of Famers? How would they feel now hearing the news that Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe Jackson are eligible?
Well, some have come out so far in public and said that some that have been contemporaries of Pete, like Tony Perez, and said that they would want him to be in the Hall of Fame. They feel like he deserves it. Mm-hmm. And some of them kind of make comparisons to steroids, and they believe that there's already people who have done steroids are in the Hall of Fame, and I believe that as well.
Yeah.
Some of the more notable ones have been kept out, like Bonds and Clemens to this point. And A-Rod also. But I think that I'll just clear it up for you, Peter, just on how the process goes from here.
Yeah.
Pete Rose, just because he was banned, never had the opportunity to be put in front of all the BBWA members back then. He never got that opportunity, to be voted on by 300-plus regular reporters that cover the game. So that part's gone. After you've gone 15 years, 5 years post-retirement, 10 years on the ballot, once you've gone past that window, you're then subject to, as you mentioned, a Veterans Committee. Well, the Veterans Committees are put together for different eras. This one is meant to consider people who have made players who have made their biggest impacts before 1980, which Pete falls into.
Right.
And it becomes a 16-member panel. And on that 16-member panel is made up of Hall of Famers, Major League executives, and baseball writers / historians. So it's really kind of a three-part group that will decide on that. He has to get 12 of those votes. But even to get onto that ballot, he still has to be considered by a different committee to put his name on it, which is the historical committee.
Right.
Again, that's made up of some BBWA members, but it's approved by the Hall of Fame. So the process can be very much be rigged to people who, aren't going to vote for Pete Rose.
Right.
They can kind of see what the landscape is like and kind of cherry pick people who become more stringent and wind up on these committees. So that's a long way of getting around to your question, Peter, about how the Hall of Famers would vote.
Yeah.
And typically, when push comes to shove, Hall of Famers who do vote on this become very much like gatekeepers for the Hall of Fame.
Right.
Because, once you're in a club, you want to make that club exclusive as possible, right?
Right.
You don't want anybody that would potentially put a stain on it or put the Hall of Fame in a bad light because you're in it. And if people that come in after you detract on how the Hall of Fame is viewed, well, that kind of takes away from your status. So I think that part plays into it a lot because when you see how these veteran committees vote, they're pretty strict on who they wind up letting people in. And I think major MLB executives, team executives, I should say, and baseball writers and baseball historians, I think, tend to be pretty strict along those lines, too.
David, and I'm talking to David Lennon from Newsday here on Sports Bash about the Hall of Fame. We'll get to the Yankees and Mets in just a couple minutes. A number of years ago, I was having a conversation with a fellow sports radio person. We were talking about Pete Rose, and he brought up an interesting point to me, and I've kind of kept it with me all these years, and I thought about it again the other day. If they were to ever put a guy like Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe Jackson, and even to the extent if the writers ever voted in a steroid guy, whether it be Alex Rodriguez or Barry Bonds or Roger Clemens or guys like that, if they were to put these guys into the Hall of Fame, maybe the way to keep the discussion going, or if they wanted to put these guys in with a clear conscience, that maybe on the plaque, and they all get the plaque that gets displayed in Cooperstown, maybe they put all their accomplishments, but then they also put a little asterisk at the bottom of the plaque saying, Pete Rose was on the banned list from this year to this year. Roger Clemens' name appeared on the Mitchell Report for using PEDs. Do you think that's ever a thought of the riders or the Hall of Fame players that, hey, look, maybe we'll put these guys in the Hall of Fame, but we want people, when they walk through the halls in Cooperstown and they walk through and they see that plaque, part of their history is what they did wrong. So maybe that's the way of getting around putting these guys in the Hall of Fame.
Well, I mean, there is a way for stating it. There's it kind of comes down to a matter of interpretation. I mean, people view those plaques as being more representative of not only a player's accomplishment, but character and the way they comported themselves in playing the game and representing the game. And, you can point to people on there along the lines that probably weren't the most upstanding citizens during it, but none of them really quite had the record as Pete Rose as far as when it comes to gambling and the penalties that he had. I always voted for Bonds and Clemens the 10 years they were on the ballot, and my logic was simple. Is that MLB never suspended those guys from playing baseball.
Right.
They were always eligible to play, and in my view, if MLB viewed those guys, capable and qualified to play, then I'm not going to disqualify them from any honors moving forward, whatever Mitchell reports there were or court cases against them. So, that's kind of a clear line, at least that I drew when I considered those people. Now, for Pete Rose, it's a much different case. Pete Rose is the all-time hits leader. People certainly admired the way he played the game. He was a part of a couple champions. But, he was permanently barred from the game.
Right.
And for quite a long time. So I think that's a pretty big hurdle for some people to get over with. There's going to be Pete's records in the Hall of Fame. Everybody knows he was the all-time hit leader. They know what he did in the playoffs for the Reds, what kind of player that he was, without giving him that plaque. So I think that's where the distinction is. There certainly can be made a case that, put him up there for what he's recognized for his greatness in the game, but also list, his detractions on there. But, it just comes down to how you view those plaques in that hall or not.
And just to tie up the talking about the Hall of Fame, in your mind, and you're around all these players for all these years, the Hall of Famers, the executives, could there possibly be, in your mind, enough momentum and enough open-mindedness to get Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe Jackson in the Hall of Fame? Do you think it's a possibility, whether it's sooner or later?
Well, I think that if the rule was changed and they got their day in front of the BBWAA voters, like the current voters, like myself, and the other 300 plus or close to 400 writers, I think that would greatly improve their chances. Because I think we as a group, being a lot younger and examining things in a lot different eye in this day and age, they'd have a much greater chance of getting in. I put the chances right now for Pete Rose, I wouldn't put it at 0, but the percentage is very small.
Yeah.
I think of him getting in under the current system the way it is right now. He's not even going to be eligible to be considered until the committee meets in 2027.
Right.
So this
wait.
is not something that's going to be on the front burner like this off season. So it's going to be a couple years before that happens, and certainly not the first time through. I could be wrong, but based on what I've seen of these things in the past, I'd say there's a very small percentage chance of him getting into the Hall of Fame.
Well, let's talk about some current day issues, and certainly for the Yankees and the Mets, it's been a winning start to the season for both teams. Let me start in Flushing with the Mets, and obviously they had all the off-season hoopla, getting Juan Soto and bringing back Pete Alonso, and they've been off to a great start this year. And now, as we sit here, middle of May, Dave, your thumbnail sketch on the Mets, what they've showed so far this year, and how far you think they can go.
Yeah, I think they're as good as anybody. in the sport right now, which is not something we typically say about the Mets, right? Maybe a couple times in their history.
Yeah.
So, that's kind of an unfamiliar spot. They're in first place. They're up by a couple games in the division. I think they have they're tied with the Dodgers for the most wins in the sport right now. So, they're not the little engine that could anymore. I mean, they're talking about a team with a $325 million payroll that, Steve Cohen has been bankrolling. So this is not an underdog team by any means. But how they've gotten to this point has been a little bit surprising. I mean, nobody would have predicted that the team, which has really built a rotation on the cheap, which Stearns did last year as well, would have the best ERA in baseball.
Right.
They have an ERA of, I think it's about 2.75 at this point. No one could have seen that coming. I mean, was this going to be a serviceable rotation for a team that, was a winning team? Sure. But not to pitch to this degree and as well as they've had. I mean, they've turned a converted closer in Clay Holmes, into a guy that has an ERA under 3.
Dave, that's been amazing to me. When you see how Clay Holmes struggled at the end of his tenure as the Yankees closer, and the Mets signed him to be a starter. And a lot of people in town, fans and media alike, all thought it was, people thought it was a joke. And boy, he has silenced those critics, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, it goes to show what the Mets have been able to accomplish on the pitching side. Not only with the pitching coach, Jeremy Hefner, who's always been a pretty sharp guy and pretty in tune with both analytics and more traditional side. I think what the Mets have done, Peter, is they've really spent a lot of money on infrastructure and the pitching lab, and really they've made leaps and bounds on how to evaluate pitchers biomechanically, what they're able to do with their arsenals. And I think Clay Holmes is a perfect example of that. I mean, Clay Holmes was mostly a 2-pitch pitcher, which you typically are as a closer or a late reliever. Instead, he added 3 pitches during spring training and became, a dominant pitcher that the Mets thought he could be. So that's really a success story to what they've tried to do as a pitching organization standpoint. So, but also guys like Griffin Cannon, who had a 5 ERA with the Angels last year, and now he's pitching with an under 3 ERA. So they've taken guys from other places, guys they feel like there's untapped potential there, and turned them into, kind of frontline starting pitchers. So we'll see how long that can last.
Let's move over to the Bronx and talk about the Yankees. And obviously they took a couple of big hits before the season started, losing Garrett Cole for Tommy John surgery. Giancarlo Stanton's been out the whole season so far, yet somehow the Yankees have been able to piece together a team that's good enough to be, in first place and finding ways to win, hitting a lot of home runs, led, of course, by Aaron Judge. And it hasn't been pretty at times for the Yankees, but they have found a way to keep this winning aspect that they've been under the last few years, getting to the World Series last year. But are you surprised how well the Yankees have been able to play under their circumstances this year?
Well, I mean, they lost Juan Soto, which is a pretty big part of it. Certainly not the injury; he just jumped across town. But I think everybody wondered how they were going to make up for that, and they point to the offensive numbers now and say, "Hey, look, the Yankees are still, at the top of the sport offensively." And a huge part of that has to do with Aaron Judge. I mean, his numbers are ridiculous. So whether it's home runs, whether it's OPS, whether it's batting average, I mean, he's really kind of he's an inexplicable phenomenon that he's able to hit at this level like he has. So he has been the engine of it, like we've all expected. But you have another guy like Ben Rice, who's really made a huge impact. That people talked about him having a great spring training. Well, there's a big difference between having a great spring training and then being a huge power bat for them at the top of the lineup. He's moved from whether it's been the leadoff spot to even moving further down to give Judge protection. So, and Paul Goldschmidt has been a guy that people thought that, hey, he's a former MVP. Let's throw him in pinstripes and see if he can get a jolt from that. And that's exactly what's happened. It's kind of rejuvenated his career at this later stage. I'd like to see more from Bellinger, obviously. I think a big part of this, Peter, is with Dominguez.
Yeah.
If they can really get him to be the guy that we saw flashes of on this West Coast, that could be a game changer for them. Yeah. Switch hitter with power like that. speed on the base pass, and the more confidence he gets, I think that's going to be a key to really kind of lengthening that lineup for them.
And last thing, David, you brought up Juan Soto leaving the Yankees for the Mets, signing that huge contract, and now we are on the verge of the first Subway Series since that blockbuster contract. It's the Bronx portion of the Subway Series that will start at Yankee Stadium tomorrow night. I think over the course of the last few years, some people have said like the whole hoopla of the Subway Series, obviously in the regular season, has died a little bit. I think there's a lot of excitement about this series this weekend because of Juan Soto, because both teams have got off to good starts this season. What are your thoughts as we get ready for Game 1 on Friday night?
Well, for sure. I mean, I think if the Knicks weren't still playing right now, I mean, the Knicks, let's face it, have been sucking a lot of oxygen out of the room right now for baseball. They're a pretty big deal. But, I mean, if the Knicks weren't playing right now, there'd be a lot more noise about this series than there has been, certainly in my corner of the world. It's pretty loud. But, yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, I mean, 2 first-place teams, 2 $300 million payroll teams, really kind of, I mean, the Mets swept them last year. Yeah. They took all 4 games and beat them up bad. I mean, they outscored them, I think, 36-15 or something in this. So it was going to be a big deal anyway, just because where these teams are in the league and the talent they have and how well they're playing. But when you throw Juan Soto into the mix here, I mean, we've never seen the level of betrayal here that Juan Soto had, and going from the Yankees to the Mets. And now he's going to be standing back in right field again, which is the tiniest piece of unprotected turf you're going to find in Major League Baseball. That's going to be wild. I don't know what's going to happen. People have talked about everybody turning their backs. I don't think so. Yeah. I think people are going to be on him from the jump, and it's just not going to stop. And I don't think we've seen anything like it. We've seen players come in there that are hated, whether they're Red Sox or whoever, but not to this degree.
Right.
Spurning the Yankees for the Mets of all teams, and then come back and stand in that exact same spot. I mean, that's worth the price of admission alone to see what's going to happen with that.
Yeah, I'm glad the Knick game doesn't start till 8 o'clock because you can watch, without any kind of interruption, the first hour of the Yankee-Met game and see the reaction when he steps to the plate the first time, when he goes out to right field. And then you can make the choice whether you want to stick with the Met-Yankee game or go to the Knicks game. But you're right that the Knicks playoff run has taken a lot of the attention away. David, I can't thank you enough for spending some time with me talking about the Hall of Fame, talking Yankees and Mets, and I hope we can do it again really soon.
That'd be great, Peter. I hope to see you at the stadium soon.
I'm going to try to get out there at some point. Thank you. David Lennon from Newsday talking baseball. When we come back here on the show, we will have a lot to do. We've got Stump the Wiz. We've got This Week in Sports History. We've got the Sports Bash Media poll question of the day. And we're going to tell you about, for Met fans at least, a very cool event that's taking place tonight here on Long Island. And I'm hoping to get over there with my family a little bit later on this evening. I'll tell you about it when we come back right after this. Hi, I'm Peter Schwartz.
And I'm Vinny Tickets.
We want to take a moment to talk about our fantastic sponsor, the Embassy Diner.
Embassy Diner has been a beloved staple in the restaurant industry for over 50 years. And the great thing about it is when you walk through the door, you're not a customer, you are family. Every visit promises to be filled with warmth, love, and respect.
And here's an extra treat. If you mention Sports Bash during your visit, you enjoy a free dessert on the Embassy Diner.
Come on down to the Embassy Diner, where great food and great company are always on the menu.
Visit the Embassy Diner, located at 4280 Hempstead Turnpike in Bethpage.
In 1982, the Marty Lyons Foundation began with a single heartfelt mission: to bring moments of joy and hope to critically ill children by granting wishes that make their dreams come true. Since that day, we have touched the lives of over 8,500 families, raising over $43 million to grant wishes that offer a beacon of light in their darkest times. These precious wishes cost an average of $6,700 each, And your support is crucial to our mission. Every donation, big or small, makes a difference. And with 76 cents of every dollar going directly to supporting our families, you can rest assured your support truly changes lives. The Marty Lyons Foundation operates 11 chapters in 14 states now, working tirelessly to reach as many children as we can. This dedication goes hand in hand with our commitment to transparency and accountability, earning us top ratings on Charity Navigator, Great Nonprofits, and Candid, which underscores our dedication to those we serve. The Marty Lyons Foundation grants wishes to children ages 3 to 17. And what really makes this foundation so special is our willingness to grant not only a first wish, but also consider a second wish to a child who continues to battle a life-threatening illness. We stand by these children, offering them hope and strength through the power of dreams, giving our children the courage to wish for more.
What's your purpose in life? Is your purpose in life to live in the big house and drive the nice car? No. Your purpose in this life is to make it a little bit better for those that follow and realize that we live for today to see a better tomorrow.
Visit MartyLyonsFoundation.org to learn more and get involved.
Welcome back to Sports Bash, presented by TicketBash.com. I'm Peter Schwartz. Thanks again to David Lennon from Newsday for joining us as we come back. A little Billy Joel, as usual, on this segment. This is She's Right on Time. Let's listen to a little bit of it. I love the song. It's from the Nylon Curtain. And, Tony and I always talk, Billy Joel, and there's always a reason for picking the song a little bit. Tony, raise it up just a little bit more, if you don't mind. There you go. She's Right on Time. And this is on the Nylon Curtain. And the significance for me, and I there's never any rhyme or reason. I try to pick a different Billy Joel song every show when we talk about it. We like to share a lot of good stories about Billy Joel. And the thing that always resonated with me, it's a great song, but then you probably remember this. You remember when Billy did that interview on Colbert a few years ago, and he did it with Bruce Springsteen also, and he had Billy Joel on. He asked Billy Joel to rank his top 5 of his own songs. And these are songs like if he was going to see himself play in concert, which 5 would you want? And I remember I was working at CBS Sports Radio late at night. I was working full-time overnights, and I was all excited that Billy was going to be on with Colbert, and I remember putting it on in the newsroom, and he's giving the 5 songs, and I think he had, And So It Goes was on there. And then he mentions She's Right on Time, and I was like, I screamed in the newsroom, and everyone thought I was crazy. I think, what's wrong? I'm like, I can't believe that Billy Joel, one of my favorite songs that he does, and it's an obscure song because not a lot of people know it. In fact, I've never seen him do it in concert. I've been to 21 shows in my life. I've never heard or seen him do it in concert. But I love that song, and I was so excited that he actually thought it was one of his 5 songs that he would want to hear. So why don't you do it more often at the shows?
He actually does do it sometimes.
I know, but I've never seen it myself.
Well, then maybe you should go more than 21.
Well, I'd like to try to go to Citi Field this summer. I mean, that's the hope. We try to get to Citi Field this summer.
He actually says that The Nylon Curtain is also his favorite album of his.
Yes. And if I ever had him on the show, oh my God, if that ever happened. If we ever could get him on the show, I would like to talk to him about that very subject. But yes, this is one of, I think it's, my list always fluctuates. Maybe we'll do that on the show one time. Ooh. If you don't mind.
Yeah.
Maybe one time on the show, we'll list our 5 favorite Billy Joel songs.
Let's do it.
And it depends on what day of the week it is, because on a Monday, I might give you a different list that's on a Wednesday.
Yeah, it's true. I'm with you there.
Yeah, so we'll do that. We'll table that for another discussion. Before I get to Wiz, big day for the New York Dragons this coming Sunday. We are bringing back the Fire Dancers, and Fire Dancer tryouts will take place at the U.S. Academy of Soccer, and we're putting up this graphic. That is Gina Grassi, who was an original New York Dragons fire dancer in the early 2000s, and we are so excited to welcome her back to the new New York Dragons, and she is going to be the coach of the fire dancers, and we're going to have the tryouts and the auditions on Sunday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So you see there's the instructions. You can go on our social medias, on mine and also on the New York Dragons social medias, and get the link to the Google form to fill out to register for those tryouts on Sunday. Tony, are you going to make an appearance at all at that? Just for support?
Well, I don't.
As the general manager?
I don't know if you remember, but I told you the New York Saints. I was the halftime. I was dancing Tony at New York Saints games.
Dancing Tony, okay.
Do you remember that?
Oh, I remember. I don't remember dancing. I was doing the games. I mean, I had the headset on. I mean, a lot of things happened during the 2001 to 2008 Dragons that, like, people will say to me, "Hey, you remember this?" My wife will even say to me, "Do you remember when they did this?" I'm like, I had the headphones on. I didn't hear anything. Same thing with the Riptide for the 4 years. Like the 2 years I did play-by-play.
Yeah.
Like, will this happen, that happened? Like, I don't know. I had the headphones on. I can't hear anything.
For the New York Saints, I did this, I think, 6 or 7 years. They would bring out the kick line, and they would put the spotlight down on me and put me on the scoreboard, and I would copy the kick line from my seat. I was dancing Tony for years.
Well, we're looking forward to it. My Director of Operations, Sean Wachter, and Director of Business Development, Marilyn Rich, and myself, we've been working hard on this project. Sean, by the way, entered the chat a short time ago, the Governor's Comedy Club chat, because I had mentioned about going to dinner at Embassy Diner tonight, and then he reminded me, weren't we supposed to go there for a little business breakfast tomorrow morning? I'm like, oh man, you're right. But what's stopping me from going there for dinner tonight and then going back in the morning?
That's right.
And the food is so good there. Why can't we do both of them? I mean, I'm telling you, it's awesome there. So, I don't know why it would be a question just because I go tonight. In my experience going to that restaurant, there's no denying the fact that you could go there at night and then go back the next morning.
That's right. I'm with you.
So there you go. Well, we've delayed this long enough. Let's bring in Wiz. You have sat here patiently. You heard my conversation with David Lennon about the Hall of Fame. I promised you, I said 5 minutes. I don't like to, take advantage of Tony's kindness with the overtime. So how about we make it 2 minutes? He's dejected. Tony, do we have permission for a couple minutes of overtime?
Of course.
Okay. So you have a few minutes here. Your thoughts on Rob Manfred's decision for Pete Rose and Shoeless Joe Jackson and others who are deceased now being reinstated and their chances of getting in the Hall of Fame. The floor is yours, my friend.
Put him in right now. Put him in right now.
Well, you just heard David Lennon say it's not that easy.
Screw that.
You can't say that. I'm giving you a forum to talk about this. At least be like, calm down and give your educated sports brain a chance to function here and explain to everybody why you feel they should be in. But you have to understand this could not happen until 2027 at the earliest.
Okay.
So don't say screw that. Just now give me your legitimate opinion.
Okay, my legitimate opinion is, yeah, Pete Rose may have gambled, but I'm sure there's tons of other guys that probably did it but weren't caught by it. Not only that, I'll say this. Pete Rose, love him or hate him, a lot of people like talking about him. They sure loved making lots of money off of him.
Oh, yeah.
And as much as these voters may be holier than thou when it comes to the purity of the sport, listen, baseball wasn't even started in Cooperstown. Mm-hmm. That's nonsense. It was started in New York City by Doc Adams, who should be in the Hall of Fame. And if these people followed history...
Did you say Doc Adams or Doc Brown?
Doc Adams.
Oh, Doc Adams. Okay, because,
Adams.
Yes. No, but I was thinking Doc Brown because you know how much I love Back to the Future.
Yeah, great movie.
And there's something that keeps ringing in my head about Doc Brown. But anyway, I digress. Go ahead.
Yeah, if these people followed history, they would know that it was not started in Cooperstown. So that already is a lie. The place is in there because of a lie.
Okay.
And so, yeah.
Do you have something against the city of, the town of Cooperstown?
Well, I think it's
beautiful there.
Yeah, but I don't think the city runs the show and have done whatever they can to suppress, people from getting in the Hall of Fame, which I think...
well, it's not the people who live in Cooperstown. It's not their doing that he's not in the Hall of Fame.
It's the people that kind of run the show a little bit. And as much as...
you don't... Wait, hold on one second. Hold on. Wait a minute. Let's talk clear. I have been to Cooperstown multiple times.
I have nothing against the people of Cooperstown.
So do you think that the people who own all those baseball shops in front by the Hall of Fame, the great restaurants, the great hotels, the bed and breakfasts that are there, that I have stayed at with my family, Do you think they have tried to keep Pete Rose out of the Hall of Fame?
No, I didn't. That's not what I said.
Okay.
I was
Didn't
saying.
that sound like what he said?
Yes.
Didn't that sound? It sounded exactly like
That's
what
not
you
what
said.
I meant.
Okay.
I meant the people that run the Hall of Fame
Yes.
in Cooperstown themselves have done whatever they possibly could to try to deflect blame on other things.
Because if Pete Rose gets into the Hall of Fame, there's some great restaurants around the Hall of Fame. How about if you had the Pete Rose sliders? Does he like to slide into the bases? You can name the slide the Pete Rose sliders.
That's a great idea.
How about that?
Well, they have the Pete Rose Hall of Fame there.
Yeah.
Which I love.
Right. So
It's funny.
the Pete Rose sliders. There we go. I just came up with something.
That's a good idea.
Okay.
Listen, I'm not hating on anyone that works at Cooperstown. I'm not hating on anyone that has a hand of it. When it comes to Hall of Fame stuff, there's things that I'm passionate about that go from 1 to 10, and Hall of Fame stuff is like 11.
Yeah.
That's how.
Okay.
Joe Jackson got screwed over because he was illiterate.
I love 8 Men Out. What a great movie.
By Kennesaw Mountain Landis,
Yeah.
who wanted to try to make a statement. I think he has a likelier chance, but my problem is the reason why I'm very cynical about these processes and the reason why I say they really don't know their history is because if they truly know their history, they'd bother to look up, things that happened decades ago. But they have not done that. And they just think that, whatever I can remember in my mind is the earliest it happened. When everyone that knows history know that's not true. And if you cared about history, you would know that Joe Jackson is the reason why, Babe Ruth is the way it is. And we know he's innocent, but we're still going to drag his name and have his family I think that's wrong. And I think that's morally wrong. I know morality is subjective and all. And for Pete Rose, too, you've made so much money off of dragging these debates out. Because
I've made so much money?
Not you.
Oh, you said
not you. Not you.
What did I do?
No, nothing. You did nothing wrong. You did nothing wrong.
Well, we do have to proceed with the rest of the show.
When I say you, I don't mean you. I meant by you, I mean Cooperstown, the MLB, because as much as they may be separate entities, come on, they're one of the same. They're the same board members and everything. So they've done whatever they can to drag this process out to make people debate because, God forbid, we need extra money from monetary gain because we need to get more clicks. Well, enough spending money off his family and his corpse, and stop doing it that way you can prop up FanDuel and BetKing and Bet Rivers and all that stuff. Put in Pete Rose, put in Joe Jackson. Just end this debate already. Just enough of it. And if you don't like that, then actually push for people you want.
Okay. Let's proceed. Right?
I apologize.
That's okay. No, that's all. I just want to proceed with the rest of the show. By the way, Tony looked it up. Ticketbash.com, $667. Now, I imagine that's a standing room ticket to get into Game 6, Knicks and Celtics tomorrow night at the Garden. It is now time for your weekly concert and event calendar, brought to you by Ticketbash.com. Nick Jonas, Adrian Warren performing at Kaufman Concert Hall tonight, May 15th. Shakira is at MetLife Stadium tonight, the 15th, as well as tomorrow, the 16th. And just know, if you haven't been watching the news, first of all, shame on you. Second of all, you should know New Jersey Transit will not be running any buses or trains to MetLife Stadium. There's that strike or whatever the hell is going on with that. So if you want to go to see Shakira tonight or tomorrow, first of all, get your tickets at Ticketbash.com. Or two, gas up your car and drive there and just deal with the traffic. Or what you could also do is find a local hotel, stay in the hotel, and I'm sure they have like shuttle buses over to MetLife Stadium. But I hope everybody going to see Shakira has a great time tonight and tomorrow. Comedian James Murray is at the Paramount Theater on the 16th. You can get these tickets for all these events and more at Ticketbash.com. They offer no service fees and have the lowest prices around. All righty, we've reached that time. It is time to play Stump the Wiz. We got to move a little quick here because we're nearing the end of our regularly scheduled part of the program before we enter overtime and the meter runs. That Tony, you're going the cab and the guy sticks the stick up in the air and that runs the meter. And we get charged for overtime here on the show. Let's play Stump the Wiz. DM your best sports trivia question to Sports Bash Media's social media channels. If we pick your question, you get a prize. And today's prize, courtesy of Ticketbash.com, 2 tickets to a mutually agreed upon Yankees or Mets game during the 2025 regular season. Here we go. Are you ready? Mm-hmm. Okay. Jerry Lattimore from Miller Place sent in this question, wants to know who gave up Pete Rose's first major league hit in 1963. The first hit for Pete Rose in the Major Leagues, 1963. Who served up the baseball? Tony Walker's got 2 minutes on the clock, and away we go.
Well, obviously there was no interleague play at that time, so that whittles down my options.
Right, there you go. Good choice there.
And that also means the Astros would be a part of the National League at that time. No, would they? No, actually, no. I don't know. No, they were the Houston Colt 45s, I think, at that time. I feel like it was someone on the Giants for some reason. I don't know why. I feel like it's someone on the Giants. Maybe it's like Gaylord Perry.
That would be incorrect.
I don't know.
What do we got in time?
Minute 30.
Minute and 30 seconds.
Doing all this, kissing Pete Rose and everything that I was doing before. And listen, Pete, his family.
I'm not giving you. By the way,
no,
I'm just telling you, I am not giving you any clue.
No need to. I'm
Jerry Lattimore. I don't know if he's a Yankee or a Met fan.
I feel like he's someone that I wouldn't know. Potentially.
You still have time.
You still have time. What do we got?
A little over a minute.
A little over a minute to go.
Maybe I think maybe Whitey Ford potentially.
Whitey Ford would be incorrect.
No, he was a Yankee. Why am I thinking Whitey Ford?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just in.
Question is from Jerry Lattimore in Miller Place. Wants to know who gave up Pete Rose's first major league hit in 1963.
Jeez. I'm trying to really think here.
I am really refraining from giving him a clue.
Me too.
Good.
I'm refraining from giving him a clue.
There's maybe a cardinal, maybe a.
I don't know. Did somebody open up the door? Did a cardinal fly in here? No.
No, it's the church cardinals.
30 seconds.
30 seconds to go. Jerry Lattimore, 30 seconds away from going to a Yankee or a Met game if his mutually agreed upon.
This is embarrassing.
Well, I think you've lost like 3 weeks in a row here.
Well, I've got partials.
Yeah. Well, this was only a one-trick pony here. What do we got?
We got 10 seconds.
10 seconds to go.
Jesus.
I am holding myself in from giving him a hint.
There's
5,
a pirate.
5.
4, 3, 2, 1. And congratulations to Jerry Lattimore from Miller Place, who sent in the question, who gave up Pete Rose's first major league hit in 1963? He is in the Baseball Hall of Fame. He played for one of the iconic franchises in all of Major League Baseball. And he is Sandy Koufax.
Oh, yeah, it was a Dodger.
Have you ever heard of him?
Of course I have.
Okay, I just
I was thinking of him, but I just didn't say his name.
All right, we are running out of time here on the overtime, so this really quick this week in sports history.
Well, I have a very quick one. In 1991, this week, President at the time, George H.W. Bush, took Queen Elizabeth II to see a baseball game between the Oakland Athletics and the Baltimore Orioles. She left after 2 innings because she thought it was boring.
Well, and then that's why we have a pitch clock now. There you go. It's time for the Sports Bash Media poll question of the day. We post a new poll question every Tuesday and Thursday on the Sports Bash Media X/Twitter page. Here's the question. I teased it the other day. I kind of teased it earlier in the show. And here is the question. If you are a Knicks fan, but you're also either a Yankee or a Mets fan, there is a dilemma now tomorrow night. Are you watching the Yankees-Mets game, or are you watching Knicks and Celtics Game 6? So here's the choices you have. You're watching the Knicks-Celtics Game 6, you're watching the Yankees-Mets game, or you have multiple devices at your disposal, and you are watching both games at the same time. I'll start with Wiz.
Multiple at the same time.
Multiple at the same time. Tony, I know you gave your answer on this the other day, but just for the sake of this episode of the show, your choice.
Yankees, Mets, baby.
Yankees, Mets. Now, here again, I talked about this with David Lennon. And I have to watch. I mean, I've been following the Knicks throughout the playoffs. And I really wanted them to win last night, so it wasn't a problem. But I can watch the first hour of the Yankees-Mets game. And, they say 8 o'clock on the Knicks-Celtics game, but you know what that means. That means like 8:15 with all the pregame nonsense, right? So I get the chance to see Juan Soto come up in Yankee Stadium, get booed, go out to right field, get booed. But if they both start at the same time, I think I would take Knicks-Celtics until the point in the game where I'm like, if it's a blowout, then I'll just switch back over to the baseball. So my choice would be Knicks-Celtics Game 6.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'd prioritize that compared to a regular season game that's in May.
I do want to tell, I teased this before, I do want to tell Met fans about a great event tonight at Mulcahy's. Remember our friend Dom at Coach's Collectibles was on the show a couple of weeks ago, and they are putting on a great event tonight at Mulcahy's in Wantagh. Mets infielder Luis Angel Acuna will be there to sign autographs, so you want to go on Coach's Collectibles website, get some more information. We're hoping to go there tonight. If I get a chance, I'm going to bring the old recorder with me, attach it to the phone, a little microphone, and maybe for Tuesday's show, or maybe on social media earlier, we'll have a little interview with Luis Angel Acuna. We're hoping to get that accomplished tonight at Mulcahy's. That will do it for this edition of Sports Bash. Thanks to my guest, David Lennon. Thanks to Wiz. Thanks to Tony Walker. Everyone here at Governor's Comedy Club. Sports Bash is presented by TicketBash.com and the Ryan Anthony Head Start Fund. Sports Bash is sponsored by the Embassy Diner in Bethpage. Congratulations to Embassy Diner. Happy 3rd anniversary. And also, we're sponsored by the Marty Lyons Foundation. For our entire crew, this is Peter Schwartz saying thank you for watching and listening. Sports Bash returns on Tuesday at 1 o'clock. Have a great weekend, everyone. Let's go, Knicks, and let's go, Yankees.